Hmm. Okay, here we go. All right. So, um, let's finish up this uh and retrieve for right now. And again, it's not everything. We'll have plenty of time to play around with this, and the more the um elaborate your queries are, the more that you're able to do with SQL. We're just covering the basics right now, okay? And I think the basics for most of us, that's enough for us to kind of cause some catastrophe and be dangerous. But at any rate, um, let's let's talk about ordering. So so far we've figured out how to retrieve data using the select clause coupled with from. So we say select whatever data we want to select from a particular table. Okay. And then we also learned the where clause that we could say where some kind of condition or constraint, where, you know, last name is equal to this, or where year released is equal to something else. Okay. Um, with our database, it's no big issue because it's a very, very small database with only a few entries. We only have what 12 albums in this database. We only have what 6 artists and 6 bands. So this database is very small. Um, but what if we wanted to obviously expand on this particular database on albums? I am now at 2,997 albums. I think that's right. I got 2 more yesterday. So I'm approaching 3,000. Um, and let's say I wanted to, uh, if I had all of them inside of a database that I built, let's say I want to select all the first names and last names of every artist in my database. Well, that can get pretty long. Okay. So I don't want to send all of that data back to the user. And if I do send it all back to the user, I want them to be able to kind of filter through it or read through it in an efficient way. So how can we do that? We can sort through the list, and we do that by using the order by clause. And what the order by does, it returns the query or the data from the query in a specific order. Okay. So what we have right here is we're saying, hey, select first name and last name from artist, order by last name. So let's see what that does. I'm gonna come over here and we're gonna say select all. Well, not select all. We said what? F name, L name from artist. And when I do that the first time there, I can see it's gonna just return the information as listed inside of the table. It's as listed inside the table, so according to the ID of the artist. But if I want to order this, I'm just going to add this clause. I could say order by L name. Now hit enter, and you can see that it sends the information ordered by last name. Now, Common doesn't use his last name, doesn't use his first name for that matter, because first name is not common. uh, but you can see that any null values will return first, and then everything else is in alphabetical order. Okay. Let's see what happens if I do this. I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to add DESC descending, And what that does is when I add that DESC or descending, then it starts from, in this case, the latest alphabet, if you will, which would be K, and work its way back up to A or null. So we can order our information if we want to. And sometimes, a lot of times, this is a very useful thing to do, right? Let's say I wanted to display every artist. Let's say I had a page that was dedicated to all of my artists, and I want to display that for the end user for my, my albums. Then I can return the data in order. I can say, hey, select all, select first name, last name, or select band from this table, order by band, order by last name, or order by album. If I wanted to return all the albums in alphabetical order, in which case it'll return the data like so. So order by is something that's really helpful, a great tool to use, again, when you want to sort your data out in any kind of way. And it doesn't have to be like just first name, last name. I could, if I had their date of birth on there, I could say, hey, select, not selector, but select title and say year released from album, order by year released. And when I do that, you can see that it's going to return every album from the earliest release all the way to the latest. So you see the numbers are going in ascending order. So the numbers are increasing as we move down the the rows. Yes. Because because I'm selecting two different fields, if you will. So I had to separate them with a comma. Yeah. So anytime if I'm not selecting all and I want to select different pieces from the table, or different fields, then I need to make sure that I'm separating each field by a comma. You will get an error if you don't do that. Okay. hmm So, um, so yeah, as you can see here, the order by, again, if I'm ordering by, some kind of character or what have you, a letter, then it will be in alphabetical order. If I'm ordering by a numerical value, it's going to return uh, in numerical order. Okay. This is also very useful when you say you want to, uh, select everybody that logged in between 8:45 to 9:30. Or everybody that logged in after 8:45, if you will. Or let's say, I wanted to um, select every coder who turned in their work uh, order by the time that it was turned in, and then it was return a list of everybody who turned in their work. So I can say, okay, who turned in their work first? Who was the last person to turn their work in, etc. So a lot that you could do with order by. I have my Dodgers jersey on today because Clayton Kershaw, his last regular season game, he's retiring at the end of the season. So hopefully we'll win the very last game of the baseball season for him, give him another World Series, send him out that way. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, all right. Let's see. I don't think. Okay, yeah, we're gonna move away from these slides a little bit because something else I want to show you. Uh, Not only can we return the data in particular order, like so, but we can also set ranges, if you will. Let's say I wanted to get every album that came out in the 70s. All right, because I got a handful of albums from the 70s. I'm not one of those people who feels like, oh, the 70s or the 80s, that was the best era of music. I'm not like music is music. If it's good, it's good, and everybody's expressing themselves in their own way. There is no better decade or anything like that. There just is. Uh, Now, there are things that make music different, and that's a discussion. But as far as just like, it's not inherently better just because it was the 70s. There's a lot of things that go into that. um, uh, Recording equipment, that's one. Drugs, that's another. Don't do drugs. Say no to drugs. But it affected the music. You pop pills, you're gonna get pill popping music. You smoke grass, you're gonna get grass smoking music. I mean, just that's not a difficult concept. Anyways, I'm going somewhere else. But yeah, so but let's talk about this. All right, let's say I wanted to get every single album from the 70s. Okay, um, how can I do that? So what we use is the between clause, and I'm gonna pull up my Visual Studio Code because I don't have that up right now. I just want to jot that down. So I'm gonna go to my lessons. So again, yesterday I showed you all how to do that. I'm gonna say CD desktop slash, I think it has lessons folder. Yep. And what do I have in there? I got my DBM, so that'd be CD DBM, and then album 25 dB. So CD album 25 dB. Yep. Oop. Open it up. There it is. Anyways, cool. Go away. Go what away. Let me know what that's all about. Okay, so let me go over here to my notes. So we have the between clause, if I can spell correctly. And so the between clause is how we can retrieve data in a range. Okay. So let's see what that looks like. I want to get every album that was released in the 70s. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, hey, select, let's just get the title and the year released. So select title and year released, okay, from album. That's the table I want to select from. And I can say here, where, matter of fact, I'm going to do this on a different line because that's what I normally like to do. So what I like to do is here, I use my select and from clause. I put all that on one line, like so. Then I hit enter, and I say where, and I can say year released. Okay. And I think it's say between, I believe I'm doing this right. Between, let's say it would be 1970 and 1980. I believe this is correct. Let's see. Yep, that's it. So here I wanted to again select every album that came out that was released in the 70s. And so what I do is the first things, straight, you select what data you want to select, from which table you want to select it from, and then I say where the year released, because that's the criteria that I'm looking for. Is based on the year released. So where the year released is between 1970 and 1980. Okay. Now, if you can recall from a mathematics class, back in high school, maybe freshman, sophomore year in college, when you're talking about between, okay, and what is the criteria for between, what gets included in that? Uh, like if I were to say something like pick a number between 1 and 10, uh, the rule is, um, well, there's different ways to say it, because there's a between and then there's a strictly between. So if I say pick number between 1 and 10, technically what that means is you can choose 1, you cannot choose 10. 10 is not included in that. 1 to 9. All right. If I say strictly between 1 and 10, that means neither 1 or 10 are included. I would say between 2 and 9. It would be 2, from 2 to 9. So here, when we use between, 1980, that year would not be included in this range. Okay, I don't have an album that was released in 1980 on here, but if I did, that album would not be included. 1970 would be included, so it would select the album from 1970. However, an album from 1980 would not be included in this. Okay, so that's a great way. Again, this is useful because let's say you want to have the albums that were released in the 1970s, or if you're doing a movie database, hint hint, and you want to have um, all of um, the movies that were released in the 80s, okay, then you can do that. All right, using the between clause. Give me 1 second. Okay, so any questions about that? Yeah. Oh, we absolutely sure can. Yes. So we just use this. All we have to do is attach order by to it, and we can say order by year released. And look at that. So you can group these clauses as you need to. Um, yeah, you can group these clauses up as you need uh to 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 get what you wanted, to get what you want. Any other questions about that? Cool. All right. So um we're gonna look at group by, and having, maybe I'll do some slide, not slides, but a video on that later, because I think that's pretty cool as well. So we can do that. All right. Uh but you can see with all these slides, I can't show everything. Okay, these slides are not like fully exhaustive and demonstrates everything that you could do with MySQL. Otherwise, I'd be making a ton of money if I did that. Um, but practice makes better. Okay, You have some data models. You know how to build data models. Maybe they're not good, but you at least know how to do it. Okay. Build some data models, and then from those data models, build databases, and you'll get better. Okay. So moving right along. Um, the U in CRUD is update. All right. The update method allows us to make changes to the data in the fields. To test this out, what we're going to do is we're going to add another Miles Davis album, only we're going to intentionally send the wrong data. Okay. So I'm going to key this into, let's come over here, my Visual Studio Code. Let me go to my data file, and it says insert into album. Title, artist ID, is it band ID? Although I don't need to do band ID, but I mean, I'm just going to do it. Band ID, label ID, and year released. Say values. Okay. And I'm going to put Kid of Blue. The artist ID is 3. Band ID is null. The label ID is 3. And the year release 2024. Okay. So here I got some data that's incorrect. Got Kid of Blue 3, null 3, 2024. I'm going to copy that and paste it. Okay, query's okay. One row affected. All right. So put in some data that's incorrect on purpose. All right. First of all, the album is titled Kind of Blue, not Kid of Blue. Secondly, if you don't have this album, you definitely should have it in your collection, because you should. It's one of the best ever. Thirdly, Miles Davis transitioned to the Great Gig in the Sky in 1991, so he could not have released this album in 2024. I want to say, what's today? Today's the 19th. Ooh, this may be the anniversary, I think. I remember watching TV when they reported that he had left us. I'm like, man, and I didn't even I was just a kid, but it was just like, I know Miles Davis, he's cool. I didn't know his music like that, but like, he's cool, right? Anyways, so we need to correct the name of the album as well as the year that it was released. So there's two things we got to change. We got to change the title, because we misspelled the title. Not saying any names. They're probably watching this video right now. And we also got to change the year released. All right. So how do we do that? We use the update clause for that. Okay. So we're going to say update, and then what table we're updating. And then we need to set this field to the correct value. And then we say where some unique identifier. And generally we go with the ID from the table. So where album ID is equal to, in this case, 13. Now, I want to make sure that it's 13, okay, before I do this, because I know some people's IDs may be a little different. Maybe, you've added more albums. This is going along with the slides. So I'm going to say select. I'm just going to say select title from album. No, I want to select, excuse me, album underscore ID and title from album. Okay, so there I do see that Kid of Blue is 13. So I want to check that first before I make this update, because I don't want to update the wrong album. Okay, so now let's do that. I also put my updates inside of my data.sql file. Um, anything that's dealing with the data itself, I put that in my data.sql file. Again, the schema information goes into the schema file. All right, so here we go. Let's say update. I'm going to update the album table. So update album, and I'm going to set title to be kind of blue. And I also can do year release. I'm going to do a comma, and I could say year released. That was 1959. Yep. Year released equal to 1959. And then I could say where album ID is equal to 13. So I'm updating the album table. This is how we make changes inside of the table. We set the particular field that we need to set, in this case title, to kind of blue, to the correct information, and also the year released, we need to fix that, set that to 1959, where, let me remove that comma, that doesn't belong there, where album ID is equal to 13. So that is getting the correct album. So now I can click that, or copy it rather, and paste it. And when I do that, it says rows matched 1, changed 1. So it changed that one row that I needed to change. And so now when I select album ID title from album, matter of fact, I'm going to say select album ID title, date created, and last update. I'm going to select all that from album. And when you do that, you can see here that now kind of blue has been corrected. I forgot the year released, but we see here's kind of blue, and notice here the date created. That's today, September 19th at 9:45 a.m. But look when it was updated. It was updated 5 minutes later, so you can see that the last update has changed. So we've updated this row, and it's been time stamped to show when the row's been updated. And we have that right here. As you can see, we're updating the album table. Then we're setting the title field to kind of blue and the year release field to 1959, where the album ID is equal to 13. Again, you may need to check if you're following along with me, and if you added more albums, you may need to check and make sure it's the correct ID for the album. When you make the update, you can see that the timestamp last update reflects when the update was made and is different from date created timestamp. Okay, so the delete clause is used to remove data from a table. So here's the D in CRUD, which is delete. If I wanted to delete the album title Big Fun, something I would never do because it is one of my favorites. It's so jamming, just funky music. Like, woof. That man was on something else right there, literally and figuratively, when he made Big Fun. Any rate, I would simply write delete from album where album ID is equal to 4, because that's the ID for that particular album, and it will delete it. Now I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to enter that in here. Be cautious, because when you delete data, you more than likely will corrupt the rest of your data especially if that row has a foreign key. That key is used to connect one table to another, so you probably need to reassign the auto increment feature to the ID field. It can get messy, so please be careful. What I mean by that is, let's say, in my here, let's say select all from band. So here I got select all from band, okay? And it lists every single band. Let's say, just because I lost my mind for whatever reason, I want to delete Led Zeppelin from this table. And I would say delete from band where band ID is equal to 5. And I would try to do that. Well, I would run into a serious issue, because what this would do would delete data here that is used inside of my album table. So it would cause for a giant mess. What I would have to do first, if I just want to be crazy enough to do something like that, what I would have to do is alter my band table by removing the foreign key constraint. Well, yeah, I had to first go to the album table, alter that table, remove the foreign key constraint from the album table, and then go and delete the record from band, and then reassign the reassign the foreign key constraint back on the album table. And then I would have to reset my auto increment so that it would count the number of rows correctly. So you see, there's a lot that goes on to it. It gets kind of messy. So my recommendation is that when you're building out your database and you're creating your schema for your tables, that you set it up certain ways so that you don't delete records if you don't have to. Deleting records should be like a last resort. In the case where some information was stored uh, inadvertently or erroneously, then you can delete. But you want to stay away from that. What do I mean by that? Let's say here at the Coding Academy, I have to keep records of everybody that fills out an application. Okay, that's what we have to do, and we have to keep records of everybody that we contact about joining this course, and who's enrolled, all stuff. So we had to keep that. We had to keep those records. Okay. Because people that potentially want to give us, billions and gazillions of dollars to do what we do, they need to know, okay, well, what's the performance like? How many folks are applying? How many people actually want to enroll in this course and participate and graduate and all sort of stuff? So we got to have that so we can show that, this is what our numbers look like, good, bad, or ugly. Well, if somebody enrolls and after a week or so, 2 weeks, they say, I don't want to do this, I want to find something else to do, I can't just delete them as if they never existed, as if they never participated in the academy. I can't just completely delete the record. Okay, what I have to do is have something that indicates, okay, this person didn't complete, but I can't just throw the record out. Okay. So that's what I mean by this. Like, if I wanted to, let's say it's a social media website or social media application. Okay. Instagram, for example. Okay. Uh, just because somebody, you know, wants to go on their little social media break because, they broke up with somebody. They had a little falling out with their main thing, and they just delete their account. That account just doesn't go away forever. Like, you don't have access to that information, right? But as far as like your records there, like, that's still there. That's still like sitting in some space somewhere. Okay. When your account gets suspended, it doesn't just go away. They still have record of that. So when you try to log on again using that same email or that same username, it can say, hey, it'll flag and say, hey, we are familiar with this particular person from representing this account. Okay, and they decide they'll do whatever they want to do with that. But you don't just delete the record altogether. Okay, so all that to say, if you have to delete, you know, do so wisely, only if you need to, um, because it can get really complex. Okay, so I do know that some people need to delete. Okay, you need to delete albums. All right, so I'm gonna write that down right here in the notes. Uh, if you need to delete, you simply say delete from whatever table you're deleting from. So I'll say table name, where, and then whatever your constraint is. In this case, I'll just say table name ID is equal to uh, some value. All right. And that's what you would do. And so that will delete it. Now, again, if you had to delete it, you're probably going to need to reset your ID to auto increment. And if you have to do that, that is this code right up here that I like to keep handy. How do we reset the auto increment? And we set num to be 0. This is kind of like how you could do variables, if you will, in MySQL. We set num to 0, update whatever the table is, set the ID to num, and then num plus 1, and then alter table by you alter table and then whatever the table name is, and set auto increment back to 1. And that's how that's done. Questions about that? Cool. Well, I'm going to end this video right here. Yes, somebody had a question. Correct. You would delete one of those and make sure you're deleting by um that particular ID. Okay. So make sure you do that. And then after you've deleted all the ones that you need to delete, okay, then again you need to make sure that you reset your auto increment. Okay. And so, like, here in your case, obviously you don't say my table, right? You're resetting it from the album table. So update album set ID to whatever, and alter table album auto increment to 1. Yes, I had another question. Yes, anybody that needs to delete, same thing. So you would have to look at your table. You have to select all your data from your table. So look at the table and see which which rows you need to delete. Okay. No, it's not okay because I'm doing a video. Um, but you would need to look at your table and see which rows you need to delete. Delete those rows one by one. And after you've deleted everything, then you need to reset your auto increment. No, that is not going to affect the key. All that does is because it's just going to reset the counter. Okay. Because anytime, okay, if I have uh 13 rows right here, and let's say I delete paranoid. Okay, I delete that one. One, the numbers are going to show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13 because they've already been assigned IDs. And so the next record that will show will be 14. You see what I'm saying? So that ID, that album ID is missing, and that can pose a serious problem when I want to retrieve data to do something with it. It's going to make my work a little bit more difficult. So if you delete your rows, which some of you may need to do, reset your auto increment. If you, what do you mean? Updating it? Uh, no, I wouldn't do that. You wouldn't. You don't just want to just update a row like that. Um, it doesn't work that way. If you will, you can't just just make it go away just because you don't like it. I guess I can't think of another way to say it. No, you would just want to just delete that record and then insert a new album, if you will, and then again reset your auto increment because again you're tracking when a record was made. Okay, so you are tracking that. So I can't just say, oh, Dawn is, and just forgive me, this is not true. Dawn is no longer with the Coding Academy, so we'll just, but we get some new person, we get Barry in here. Oh, we'll just take Dawn's name off and put Barry's there. No, it doesn't work that way. Um, so yeah, you have to um yeah, just do it correctly. Okay. If you need to delete a record, just delete it. If you need to insert a new record, just insert it. And then again, just make sure whenever you delete that you uh reset your auto increment. Yes.
I was curious because I don't really understand what effect auto increment has, right? So you say you delete Mama's gun and then it goes 7, 8, 10.
Mm-hmm.
When you reset the auto increment, does that reset all of the IDs, or like what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's gonna
10 come in.
That's gonna reset all the IDs.
Okay. For all of the foreign keys.
For the foreign keys, no, the foreign keys will stay intact. Okay, it's not touching the foreign keys because you're resetting this. Now, if we wanted to, we couldn't just auto increment the foreign keys aren't auto incremented anyway. The foreign keys are pulling data from another table.
But if like tapestry, if tapestry changes from 11 to 12, and we got it linked to another,
But it's
table,
not.
But it's not. And so we would just need to make sure.
Well, if it were, then then it would. That's where it gets tricky. Like I'm saying, because you would, like, if we had this connected to a pivot table, okay, um, then yeah, I would have to go and to the pivot table and make the change there as well. Okay. And then make the change in the album table. And so that's why I say,
Yeah.
delete with caution. You do that. I hardly ever delete. I'm showing you that it can be done because it's a part of the CRUD method. Okay. But I don't just do that. Right. And when I write my database, when I build out my schema, I like to include things that can demonstrate if a, you know, for example, is account active? That's true or false. Okay. So if the account, I can have a record saying or a field saying, hey, this account is not active. I don't have to delete the record. I could just say this account's not active, you know, because somebody want to say, hey, you know, was this account ever active? Did you receive, is this email attached to a certain account? And I can scroll through and look up the email, right? And I can say, okay, yeah, I see the email here. Well, is that account active? No, that account's not active. It hasn't been active since, March of 24, right? Um, you have to be very cautious with delete. Now, for a lot of folks right now, because when you were inserting data, you did some weird stuff with it. That's okay, because again, you're learning. It's okay right now to go ahead and delete, the data that you need to. But moving forward, and as you develop it in this, you want to stay away from deleting records. Okay. You want to have a schema that can account for, the activity that represents the record. You want to do that instead, because it can be a mess for you. And I mean, the cool thing is we don't have to go and right inside of the SQL server and do all this stuff. I mean, we can, we build out interfaces and stuff that allow us to do that with clicks of buttons and input fields and whatnot. However, the logic that's going on inside of that, we had to be mindful of that because you had to reset all this other stuff. Correct. So be careful. That's what I'm saying. Like, in the slide, be cautious. Okay. And it can get messy. So please be careful. I have that there for a reason. All right. So those are things that you want to think about. You cannot be lazy when you're building out a schema. You cannot be lazy, brain. You have to be thinking about what you're doing. And, it's never, as a developer, good enough that something just works. Okay. You got to figure out ways that, to keep it working, you know, um, how that it won't make a mistake as best as it can, because you'll make mistakes, but you figure out how to account for those kind of things. Always thinking about, well, what if Day comes in and try to hack into this and does some weird stuff. You got to account for all those different things, all the things that can happen outside of it working. All right, and what's the best way to address that? So be cautious with delete. Okay. That is that for those slides. I'm going to end that right here. And yes, I'm going to end it right here for these slides. In the next set of slides, we're going to talk about joins, okay, which will allow us to connect different tables, because what we've done so far, we're just pulling data from one table, but we want to figure out how we can best optimally use a relational database, and joins are in the next slide. Go Dodgers.